I started practicing in December of 1974. And I started with a small litigation firm in Long Beach who were about 14 lawyers. And most of what they did was representing insurance companies and institutional defendants. So they were defense lawyers. The partner who had hired me, Dick Smith, came into my office about the second month I was practicing. And I said to me, he said, say, you said you were interested in trying cases, didn't you? I said, yeah. And he started to tell me about this interesting case. This fellow had been accused of serious crime, of robbing and sexually assaulting a 14-year-old paperboy. And it was a case of mistaken identity. He had been wrongfully accused of this thing, and he was up to trial. I said, well, geez, it sounds really interesting. I'd love to be a part of it. He says, well, so I said, when's it going to try? I said, not before tomorrow. I probably should have had an idea at that point in time that something was wrong. There was a reason why Dick Smith was talking to me about that case at the last minute. And but I was young and eager, and I took the case on, and that was, my first trial. Interestingly, before the case started, our prime witness, who was going to testify, that was the alibi witness for my client, turned himself into the prosecution and confessed that he was a deserter from the Navy. At the time of the incident, he was on a ship in the middle of the Pacific, and he had been hired by my client, paid to offer an alibi testimony. And so instead of having an alibi testimony, I had a witness who was going to be accusing my client of suborning his perjury to come up with an excuse. And so that's the way my very first trial got started. And I came back to the office at noon that day and explained this to Dick. He said, I said, what do I do? He says, well, I think you ought to go in and tell Judge Brown that you didn't know anything about this, and you'd like to be relieved as counsel. And so I went back in and made a motion to Judge Brown to be relieved. And Judge Brown looked at me and he says, Chuck, he said, somebody's going to represent that son of a and that somebody is you, and the time is now. You go out there and do your best for that guy. and I did. So that's the way my first trial got going. We put on evidence for a few days, and it took the jury about 20 minutes to decide to convict the fellow, and but I didn't get disbarred. But the great thing was, this was a firm where you got to try cases, and so it wasn't long after that I got to try my first civil case, and that was a maritime case.